For years we thought the silence of space was absolute, cold, infinite, empty. But silence, it turns out, is a lie. Because just days ago something extraordinary happened. A deep space probe detected a signal. Not from a star, not from a comet, but from 3I Atlas, the emerald wanderer that has haunted our skies since spring. The message wasn't random. It was deliberate. And when it reached the moon, the impossible occurred. The moon answered. In that instant, every instrument on Earth began to scream. Because for the first time in human history, the cosmos spoke, and Earth was listening. It began as nothing. A flicker buried in the static, a whisper drowned beneath the noise of a universe too vast to care. For weeks, it was just another anomaly, a meaningless blip lost among cosmic background radiation. But then, someone slowed it down. Frame by frame, pulse by pulse, and patterns began to emerge. Prime numbers, golden ratios, spirals, the unmistakable fingerprints of intelligence woven into the fabric of the transmission itself. Atlas, the emerald wanderer drifting through our solar system, was not silent. It was speaking. At first, the explanation was simple. Interference, atmospheric distortion, data corruption. But when the same signal was detected again, this time from 3 separate observatories across 2 hemispheres, doubt began to fracture the calm of scientific certainty. Atlas wasn't behaving like a rock. Its orbit shifted slightly, unnaturally. Its light fluctuated with deliberate rhythm. Each pulse arrived in perfect temporal alignment, separated by intervals so precise atomic clocks could have been tuned to them. And then it happened. The pulse sharper, stronger, focused. Deep Space Network antennas in Australia captured it first. A narrow beam, coherent, targeted. It wasn't fading into the black. It was aimed. When researchers traced its trajectory, the result was undeniable. The signal wasn't directed toward Earth. It was heading straight for the moon. Seconds later, every seismic sensor on the lunar surface twitched. The ground itself seemed to shiver as though struck by a note too deep for human hearing. Then came the echo, not static, not reflection. A perfect mirror of Atlas's signal, but layered, complex, expanded beyond its origin. Tones that didn't exist in the initial waveform. Harmonics folded into harmonics, carrying encoded sequences no human had ever written. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't noise. It was an answer. Across labs, across continents, scientists stared at their screens in stunned silence. For the first time in recorded history, the moon, our ancient mute sentinel, had spoken, and it hadn't repeated what it heard. It had added to it. Whatever Atlas had said, the moon had understood, and in that chilling moment, one truth became clear. The silence we had trusted for millennia was never silence at all. It was listening, waiting. The echo hadn't even faded before chaos erupted across the network. Antennas on 3 continents, Madrid, Canberra, Goldstone, all spiked simultaneously. Not with noise, not with distortion, but with order. Waveforms danced in lockstep across thousands of kilometers. Aligning like an unseen hand was conducting them. The data wasn't messy or chaotic. It was precise, clean, mathematical, deliberate. Technicians stared at their screens, whispering the same word under their breath. Impossible. Because what they were seeing wasn't interference. It was intention. In lunar orbit, satellites that had slept for decades came suddenly to life. Telemetry panels blinked awake. Diagnostic systems engaged without command. Then came the probes. Old surveyors, relics from missions long forgotten, began transmitting again. Not telemetry, not position coordinates, long strings of them, numbers that pointed to nowhere familiar. Even the Apollo-era seismographs, powered down half a century ago, began to hum faintly through their residual circuits, vibrating in perfect synchrony with the pulses from Atlas. It wasn't random. Every machine that had ever touched the moon was answering the call. Across the control rooms, disbelief turned to dread. Engineers confirmed the unthinkable. None of these systems worked. There was no link, no shared command line, no signal relay, and yet they were cooperating as if something or someone had bound them together under a single directive. Atlas had not just reached the moon, it had triggered it, and the frequencies began to converge. Slowly at first, a subtle drift in bandwidth until every instrument, every satellite, every dish across the planet locked onto one shared resonance. 1420 MHz, the hydrogen line, the universal frequency of communication, the one we used to say, "We're here." and now was saying something back. Researchers stood motionless, their faces lit by the green glow of data streams they no longer understood. Because this frequency wasn't chosen by human hands, it was chosen for us. It carried a tone that was unmistakably artificial, but not ours. A message layered in harmonics that hinted at structure, as if language itself was taking form. In the labs, the chatter stopped. The hum filled the silence. No one dared speak because the meaning was clear. Humanity's machines were no longer just listening to the cosmos. They were part of the conversation. Beneath the ancient face of the moon, something began to move. Not visibly, not violently, but deep, far below the dust and silence. The ground itself began to hum. Seismic monitors across the globe, some forgotten since the Apollo era, suddenly flickered to life. The readings were faint at first, tiny tremors echoing from kilometers beneath the crust, but the rhythm was wrong. It wasn't tectonic, it wasn't thermal, it was patterned. Every few seconds, the same sequence repeated. 3 pulses, a pause, then 5. Over and over. When the data was slowed down and converted to audio, the vibration became a low, resonant tone. Not random noise, but something hauntingly deliberate. A vibration that felt alive. The sound rose from the lunar bedrock like a forgotten hymn. Within it, analysts found symmetry, ratios that matched Fibonacci sequences. Harmonics aligned with the moon's orbital resonance. And buried deeper still, distortions that mirrored the cadence of human speech. It wasn't just vibration, it was language. Linguists refused to comment. Physicists denied it outright. But when someone overlaid the waveform with Atlas's transmission, everything aligned. Every crest, every harmonic, every silence, perfect correspondence. It wasn't response. It was synchronization. The moon wasn't being contacted. It was being reactivated, old legends resurfaced. Whispers from ancient civilizations that had once described the moon as a guardian, a mirror, a machine. For generations, scholars dismissed them as myths. Now, those same stories felt like prophecies carved in metaphor because the data didn't lie. There were voids beneath the lunar crust, vast chambers stretching miles wide, resonating as if hollow, not empty, but tuned. As Atlas drew closer to Earth, the signals intensified. The tremors deepened, and the moon's pale glow shifted almost imperceptibly, a soft emerald undertone flickering across its surface, like the pulse of a waking heart. Theories turned to fear. What if the moon had never been just a rock? What if it was built to listen, waiting for a voice powerful enough to wake it? And if so, what else might be waiting inside it now that it was awake? In labs around the world, researchers stared at the data that defied belief. The moon wasn't reflecting light anymore. It was transmitting it. And this time, it wasn't whispering to Atlas. It was whispering to us. It began at 2140 UTC. A subtle. The glow was faint, a soft emerald whisper, but its rhythm was unmistakable. Every 27 seconds the light surged, perfectly synchronized with Atlas's transmissions. Coincidence dissolved in that instant. The moon was answering in color, and then the earth changed. Night felt differently that evening. From Tokyo to Cairo, from Reykjavik to the Amazon, the darkness no longer felt black. A pale green radiance spilled across the world, washing oceans and deserts in the same spectral hue that pulsed from Atlas. Auroras ignited over the equator. Rivers gleamed like liquid glass. Flocks of birds twisted into geometric spirals as though guided by an unseen metronome. Whales sang new songs, their low tones rising in harmonic unison with the rhythm of the sky. Humanity stood under an alien light, watching its oldest companion transform into something unrecognizable. The moon was no longer reflecting sunlight. It was emitting its own, but light was only the surface. When scientists analyzed the spectral data, they discovered that the glow itself carried information. Hidden within the wavelengths were geometric imprints, coordinates, ratios, encoded structures repeating with machine-like precision. At first, analysts assumed they pointed to Atlas, but the vectors didn't align. They stretched far beyond the solar system, toward a region of interstellar space devoid of known stars. Whatever the moon had awakened to, it was reaching outward, past Earth, past Atlas, towards something else. The implications fractured the scientific community. Was the moon a transmitter relaying a message to the stars? Or was it answering a call, confirming receipt like a node in a network far older than our species? For all our instruments, our algorithms, our equations, one truth remained painfully clear. The moon was no longer ours. It had become a beacon. And somewhere in the dark between worlds, someone was listening. Then came the hum. It began as a faint vibration, so low it slipped beneath the reach of instruments. Yet everyone could feel it. A pressure behind the ribs, a tremor in the bones. At first it was blamed on wind, machinery, imagination. But by dawn it was everywhere. From the quiet deserts of Nevada to the crowded towers of Hong Kong, people woke to the same sensation. A pulse steady and resonant, vibrating not in the air, but inside them. Hospitals overflowed with reports of insomnia, dizziness, and something stranger. Patients began whispering in their sleep, sequences of numbers, rhythmic and precise, each matching the pulse intervals of Atlas's signal. Even children spoke in unison, murmuring patterns no human language could contain. The data confirmed the unthinkable. The moon and Atlas were still talking, but now Earth was answering. We weren't observers anymore. We had become receivers. Across research facilities, analysts noticed a terrifying symmetry. The delay between Atlas's pulse and the moon's echo was shrinking, and between them, something new had emerged. A third frequency, lower, denser, originating from Earth. Magnetic observatories reported fractional shifts in the planet's field. Clock satellites desynchronized, each losing microseconds in a pattern perfectly synchronized with the hum. Even ocean buoys recorded subtle pressure waves, vibrations rising from the seafloor. Something was resonating beneath us. When the frequencies from Atlas, the moon, and Earth were merged into a single spectrum, the image that appeared was unmistakable. 3 concentric circles expanding outward in perfect proportion. Atlas, the moon, Earth. 3 bodies locked into harmonic resonance like gears in a cosmic machine, and then the hum deepened. Cities shook without earthquakes. Metal frameworks vibrated until glass hummed in sympathy. Compasses lost their bearings. In the silence between pulses, voices could almost be heard, faint, distant, like whispers from beneath the fabric of sound itself. Humanity had become a conduit. The signal wasn't moving around us anymore. It was moving through us. The moon had answered Atlas, but it wasn't speaking to us. It was speaking through us. And somewhere beyond the cold horizon of stars, something vast and ancient was listening, not to our words, but to the resonance of an awakened world. Whatever had been sleeping across the void had found its chorus. The system was complete, and the song had only just begun.